I'd like to call the regular board meeting to order. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance, but I would like to ask the board to stand for a moment in memory of the governor who has just passed away. Thank you. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Chairman. Mark Finkel.
Here.
Albert Hayes.
Here.
David Bergstresser.
Here.
Anthony Netto.
Here.
Jeffrey Rosenthal.
Here.
Michael Clark. Here. Robert Leslie.
Here.
Robert Voltan.
Here.
John Hodgson. Here. Richard Ferrari. Here. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I know of no revisions to our agenda. I don't believe we need to go into executive session, so I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda as that's here, unless somebody else has.
I'd like to make that motion.
Mr. Hayes.
I'll second it.
Mr. Bergstresser.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have no paper for guests. Do we have any speaker? Public comment? Okay. Then we move right on to 7, approval of the December 9th regular board meeting minutes, which we've gotten. Is there any comment? Sorry about that.
Warning.
Oh, yeah, weather. They're telling us it's snowing outside because none of us can look out a window. A motion to approve the board minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Bergstresser.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Report of the executive director.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Happy New Year to all board members and staff. My report is on page 29. First, I'd like to report to the board that we worked.
Because it's on, as I turned it off, I turned my phone off and now this is screaming at me, so.
I just want to report that an agreement was reached with the CSEA local of regulating district. There's a memorandum of agreement was reached in terms of a collective bargaining agreement for the period of July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2016. I think I said that right.
Yep.
And that's good news. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to comment that, just for the record, the board did vote that if they approved it as, we did not have to make another vote on it when they approved it because we approved it as they voted it. Did I say that right?
Yes, the agreement that was reached matched the terms of the resolution
That we passed.
142207 that the board passed in July.
So there was
You
no
directed
need
me
for
to
us
get
to the board to
specific
act,
terms,
right.
and that's what we did get.
Yeah.
So that is done. Of course, there's always a follow-on contract to deal with in the future, but we're not there yet. I would also, and it's certainly important as it affects many of the senior staff, on the 17th of December, myself and Mr. Ferrara and Stephanie Rizicki attended a mandatory meeting in the Capitol with deputy, that was led by Deputy Secretary of Finance David, regarding the minority women business enterprise goals for the coming year. The point of that meeting was to formally and in person let us know that that goal that for the past, I don't know how long it's been, a couple of years, 3 years, that has been at 20%, is now going to be 30% effective, well, immediately.
What have we been running for?
This past year, we did, we met our goal. I don't remember the exact percentage, but
For
we,
the current year we're
the
in?
current year we're in finishing.
2014 or whatever.
Right. Well,
Did we
a lot
go-
of it's going to be the timing of payments to vendors. So we're working through that now, but the goal, number one, is not 20%. Our approved goal for this current year actually was 18 and change.
We're gonna beat it.
So
But now
we don't know that yet.
But now we have to try and attain 30%?
Correct.
That's
Right,
correct.
and that actually went into effect January 1.
Right.
So any contract that you let from 1
Now-
on, you have to do 30%.
Now, although, and I will tell the board that not only is the goal increased, but also the record keeping and tracking, quarterly reports, and the goal plan is far more detailed with far more involvement and staff effort than has ever been required in the past. Mr. Ferrara, and now our engineering assistant, Stephanie Rizicki, are neck deep in that effort. And with a goal plan for this coming year due next week on the 15th. One of the, just put that out there, that although it's a business keeping item, it's something we need to continually make an effort to do. It is taking more manpower than it has in the past, and it is noticeable.
So typically of the MWBE program in state government and federal, the goals have been established prior to our submitting our plan for establishing our goals.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. And now we will submit our goal plan, like I said, next week. And I don't know yet that our proposed goal is going to be 30%. I can say off the cuff that it's going to be difficult to get there, and yet, primarily because of the type of procurements we do. I mean, we're not buying commodities. Our biggest spend, we are going to propose, and for the coming 3-year budget, or at least staff will recommend a vehicle replacement for a couple of vehicles. So they see there's an opportunity there, but I don't know what our actual percentage is going to be that we propose and ask for approval on. And I will certainly share that with the board as soon as myself and Mr. Farrar will share that with the board as soon as
Again,
we're ready to do that.
that number will probably be 30%. I will be shocked if the division or of economic development makes the same mistake they made last year, which was to allow us to submit a goal that was under 20%. I mean, it's the calculation that goes into it gets more complicated because you have to break it out into commodities and services and construction.
Nevertheless, they did.
But what?
Nevertheless, they did.
Nevertheless, they did. So that doesn't, and that certainly doesn't preclude the requirement to where at all, in every case, unless you get a waiver, you have to let your contracts at the goal that you've submitted. And from April 1, from January, but clearly from April 1 on, the measured goal is going to be at least 30%. So
Is it
we
even-
have our work cut out for
Is
us.
that even if it's not competitive, I mean, price-wise?
Again, the caveat to all of the MWBE always is you still have to get best value, and you still have to, unless we identify in the case of vehicle, for example, a Ford is a Ford is a Ford, and if you can purchase the Ford from the minority or woman-owned company that at the same price, then you do it. Those are the no-brainers. Those are the low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Where it gets a little more complicated, and I think it was in the case of this most recent contract we did for subsurface at Indian Lake, where we knew that there were subsurface companies that were MWBE, and when we went out, only 2 submitted. One of them, Mr. Fulton, refresh my memory, what were the $2 amounts?
The highest of, well, the higher of the two was $148,000, and
And the other was what?
the other one was about 45,000.
So obviously in that case, you go with the 45,000, and then you look at it and you say, is the 45,000 reasonable in terms of what you could have got if you would have opened up the procurement to anybody to bid? And I think the agreement we had was to the ballpark.
Yeah, certainly.
So, in any case where we believe that we're not getting the best price for the state, we should not be selecting, a firm that's, whether it's MWB or not, that's, not within, some
Okay.
reasonable, price on the contract. So, but again, back to reaching the goal, it's the type of work that we do that makes it most difficult in terms of reaching the goal. It's the,
And I think one of the things various things, what percentage of time is it taking her to do these reports?
it's off the charts. The due diligence, the justification, is very difficult to measure because a lot of it is driven by how much activity you have going on. For us, it's a good news, bad news. The good news is we have funding now that allows us to do a lot of stuff that was on the back burner. The bad news is because there's a lot of that stuff, it raises the number of available dollars that you need to demonstrate that you've made every effort to reach out to MWBE firms. And that effort, again, is very detailed, has to be documented. There's, even when you get a firm, there's a lot of information that needs to come from the firm that needs to be delivered to the folks down in New York. So it's, you need this thing screams
Full-time job.
for a full-time person, at least. I mean, if you want to demonstrate that we're doing this to the best of our ability, it screams for it.
Okay, I guess we'll have to face that at some point.
Yeah. We're doing our best.
I also would like to mention to the board that the general counsel and I met last month with Erie Boulevard, Brookfield, Tom Uncher, and their counsel,
Josh Stain.
To discuss a couple of things really that are related. The headwater benefits issue and our view of it, and Erie's view of it, as well as the reservoir operating agreement. That didn't really bear any fruit, other than the fact that we had that discussion, and they informed us that Erie informed us that they were going to issue a letter to FERC stating their position. And we informed them that we were going to issue a letter to FERC almost at the same time, stating our position. Bottom line, their position is they feel like they're due an offset going forward on the amount of overpayments from 2002 to 2008 with 9% judgment interest, which is a little bit,
That's
certainly a shoot.
That's statutory interest.
Yeah, but they're claiming, well, it is, but they're kind of mixing and matching because they, that's the state statutory interest, and the FERC's order doesn't mention that. And yet Erie constantly points out that this is a federal issue. So that's one side of it, but it's definitely a shoot for the moon approach. And our position is that and I'm just stating it from a layman's perspective, our general counsel can certainly flesh it out better than I will. Our position essentially is that, these two decisions we recently got from the appellate court third department, and I say, and the Borlex appeals, it makes it clear that refunds, they're not eligible for refunds, and we're still viewing refunds to be equate to offsets. It's still money, whether you're paying it back or paying it forward. It's cash. So we issued a letter to to FERC, stating our position and asking them to collect headwater benefits from 2002 back. FERC, and both of those letters have been issued. They're both on FERC's website, I believe. And now we wait. Where it goes from here, I don't know, but I'm confident one thing, it's going to take time. And I can say that with no reservation.
And I can agree with you with no reservation.
At this point, that's what we know.
We all know how fast FERC moves.
So we're still working towards resolution on that, and we'll keep working on it.
So we may see a little cash someday.
Also, I want to, and this, although this is an effort on our part, that New York State as a whole, if I could do this, everything in the, all of New York State is now going to, there's a directive that we're all going to, and the phrase is the branding, or essentially it's a new logo for New York State. We, if you remember, if you just look at the regulating district, we have our own letterhead. It's got the Great Seal of New York, or at least the Excelsior.
Coat of arms.
Right.
Kind of pieces and parts of it. That's not going to be on there anymore. It's not going to be on the business cards. DEC's trucks are going to be redone. It's going to say this, and it's going to have a line next to it with your state name. This is out there, and they're already changing our websites. We're in the process of doing that, and it's just going to have, there's going to be a line. I know this isn't very helpful, and then you're going to have, in our case, Hudson River Black River Regulating District next to that, and that's what's going to be on everything. On our vehicles, our letterhead.
Sure.
Our email?
Our email, right?
I'm keeping.
Anything that we would issue to the public, it's going to be on there. And it's not just us, it's everyone.
Right.
Probably not a bad thing. Just an effort to...
Whether there's nothing we can do about it, however, I suppose it's important for the board and the public to know. I have to assume there's an expense that's going to be associated within our budget for changing our letterhead. Nothing nominal, but it's an expense.
I think the expectation is that as supplies
Okay.
are replenished,
All right.
the new branding takes effect. So
Okay.
if
But the
you
stuff
have,
we can change immediately.
Right.
So it's not a,
if you
let's throw
have,
everything out.
if you have painted your truck, I don't think they anticipate that you're going to repaint your truck with the new logo.
Okay.
If you've got a window sticker or a magnet on the side of the door,
That can
you know,
be changed.
those things can be changed. And so we'll make reasonable expenses. We'll run through our letterhead, we'll run through
Email
whatever else.
signatures.
Right. But things like email signatures, the change in the website, you know, the change in the logos on the doors, uniform stuff that gets replenished, you know, we can do that.
Okay.
And it's not, it's all entities, whether they're agencies or public authorities, public benefits. They are applying it across the board. DOT, Thruway Authority, Environmental Conservation, Parks and Rec, all of those folks.
It's also color coordinated.
It is color coordinated, and since we, the Hudson River Black River Regulating District, are in the environmental group, along with, the entities that ought to be, DEC, Lake George Park Commission, Parks, the Adirondack Park Agency and the like, we are going to be, essentially, we're in the green group. So it's not a surprise. That means either essentially you're going to have green lettering on white, or white lettering on green, if the case, whatever the case is. And I know it's not really meaty, but it's going to be an effort on our part, and folks will see the difference.
Still your report.
And that's, well, and the last thing I was going to mention is part of the final report of the state comptroller, or their audit report that was issued last year. They had a number of recommendations, which we are already in the process of complying with. One of the recommendations was that the board examine or consider the permit fees and whether they're reasonable or not. The access permit fees to Grand Secondary Lake. Staff has talked about it at length, and I would, welcome, need input from the board and probably further discussion. Essentially, one concept, not just concept, the reality of the situation is, given that we have a settlement agreement with the 5 counties for the Hudson River apportionment downstream, part of that agreement is that any increase in any other revenue stream to the within the Hudson River budget would result in a reduction in the amount that's actually assessed against those beneficiaries.
Right.
Certainly understand why, they wanted to resolve the matter in that case. What that means, in essence, is whatever, whether it's nominal or a little more than nominal, if there was a permit fee increase, we are more than obligated to, in turn, reduce the amount assessed to the 5 counties, the beneficiaries, resulting in a net of 0 to the regulating district. I'm sure that it warrants further discussion, but on first pass,
I remember discussing restructuring of the fee scheduling at one point.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That is,
to transfer some of the burden to the commercial.
and that's a possibility, and yet, you're right, that was discussed, just an across-the-board small increase has been discussed over time. And yet, given the makeup we have now of our revenue stream within the Hudson River area, any increase whether it's permit fees or, remember, remember what our revenue streams are within the, we've got our assessments against the 5 counties for flood protection. That's the lion's share, right around $3 million. Another $1.1 million from the reservoir operating agreement for at the EJ West Hydro, and then we've got permit fees, which are run year over year about just over $400,000. A very small amount when you compare it to anything else. If they went up, if that $400,000 went to $500,000, we have made an agreement with the 5 counties that we would make that $3 million,
Reduce it.
2.90. And, did I do that right? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
With a net increase in revenues of nothing.
I think restructuring it will move some of the increase to the commercial end so that we aren't hitting it, and then the hit on the residential would be significant.
And yet, with that effort, we still don't increase our.
right. The comptroller report,
Well, with an increase.
well, the comptroller's report basically took issue with the fact that the permit fees had not increased in decades.
Right.
And it left us with the impression that, how can you operate without more fee, tax? An increase in money going to the government. So they wanted us to look at the amount of the fees collected.
Sure.
Not the makeup of the fees, not from whom they come.
Just the
Simply increase them. Because, they hadn't increased them. So I think what we're saying is any increase is revenue neutral to us for the next 3 years. And we're not sure that we see the benefit to that to the regulating district. Now, that doesn't mean that the lake community may not have different opinions about who would benefit from an increase or who would benefit from no increase. And we haven't heard anything from any of the other groups that would benefit from an increase in the lake side permit fees to the, which would result in a decrease of any amounts coming from them. I think you give a full vetting to the comptroller's directive, really, that we look at this issue. And the board ought to give it some thought. And
Yeah,
But
maybe,
Well, I
the
think
controller
it's a-
aware of the dynamic here that we were just discussing?
Maybe,
You
maybe not.
you
Might
can
not
send
be.
an edict
the
to
comptroller,
increase permit fees. But if there's an agreement with the municipalities that they are going to get essentially a dollar for dollar reduction, then the controller is missing the point, respectfully, that an increase in the permit fees is going to increase the size of the piggy bank that we have.
right, and then,
But
Yeah, but
in any
Zach's point,
case,
though, does the comptroller really care if we increase the piggy bank?
They said examine or consider.
right.
If there's an offset to the 5 counties, that's, could be considered fair to the 5 counties if these access permit fees rise, because they haven't in decades, then, the landowners or the people that are accessing the lake, they're getting a subsidy against what would otherwise be a higher fee based on a fair market view of the situation.
I have to confess, as a permit holder, I don't think overall you would find tremendous backlash from the notion that permits need to be increased. What I question in all of this discussion, if the increase in the permit fees is done in the spirit and the effort that they're below market value, for example, and we're going to increase revenue, well, that's incorrect. Because we're going to increase revenue on the one hand for the permits, but we're not going to increase the size of the amount of money we have to do the job that we have. And that's, I
Because
think the
of the agreement.
controller is saying, increase the fees, not just because they're historically low, increase the fees because you need to generate more income.
That is what they're saying.
You can't do that.
I'm saying that rhetorically. And once you say that, once you make that premise, but fail to understand increasing the fees doesn't reach that result, it does not attain that result,
Only for 3 years, though, right?
then there's a point being missed, a significant point being missed.
Well, it's,
Does the entire increase have to be used to offset the county?
yes, any additional revenues.
And that's by agreement between the regulating district and those beneficiaries?
Right.
Yes, it is. Now, I would also,
And when does that aspect expire?
June 30th, 2018. Right?
Well, I mean, it would always reduce. I mean,
Why?
any increase
Why
in
would
the
it
permit fees
always
would always.
And why'd you,
Well, because it's
and
part of
what's
the-
the significance
It's
of that?
it's part of the statutory way in which we have to budget.
He's right, but let me add one more thing. Up until June 30th, 2018, the amount of the assessment levied against the 5 counties is limited to $2,994,000. After July 1, 2018, into the next budget cycle after that, yes, any increase in the permit fees would reduce the total assessment that would be levied against the 5 counties, but there's no cap on the assessment that could be levied against the 5 counties. So
Correct.
there's,
you still could see a net increase in our overall
Right.
revenues in the Hudson.
Sure,
River.
so given that
Based on-
background, I would say, quite candidly, this is a long process.
Yes.
This is not a process
Oh, yeah.
that can be achieved in 6 months.
No.
And
we
we should
didn't
avail
anticipate.
ourselves of our budget cycle and have a discussion internally as well as with interested parties, and take that period of time to develop a plan by which reasonably, equitably, maybe, permit fees need to be
I can make a
increased.
statement that those permit fees are a bargain.
Well, yeah.
Again, I'm a
Absolute
permit
bargain.
holder, and I don't think any of us are gonna dispute that. I don't think there's any dispute.
I'm not from the area, I'm not a permit holder, and I look at the fees they're paying for usage of the lake frontage, and it's like,
I think in this discussion, we should not lose sight of the differences in magnitudes of the different
right?
revenue streams we're talking about. Remember, annual assessments to the 5 counties, $3 million.
Right.
$3 million total, another little over $1 million from the use they had at Conklinville, Reservoir Operating Agreement, and $420,000 in permit fees. Now,
It's like
let's-
it's like a ninth of the amount of money.
correct. So if you look at, if you want to really talk about what effect would you actually see by it, just conceptually, and I'm sure this can be taken out of context, but it's worth talking about. If it went up a nominal amount, if it went up a couple percent for a couple of years, let's just say that, when I say that, the permit fees, and that 420,000 got to 500,000 or whatever, that $80,000 or $100,000 increase is then, if it were to go back against and reduce the amount of the assessments charged to the 5 counties, you're talking about $100,000 off of $3 million, and then and remember, it's not one entity.
Right, now
there's
you're
5.
dividing it amongst 5.
Saratoga and Albany have about 34% each of that.
Right.
Of that, they carry the lion's share. Rensselaer County 17%. Washington,
the rest.
Warren County is at 6, and Washington's at 4.
Yeah.
So Albany County 33%. So they would, for example, let's take Albany County. They would see, in theory, if you were to apply that way, you would see a reduction of $34,000 off a bill right now that runs. Well, it's over $1 million. 1.2.
What's that,
the amount charged to like Albany and Saratoga, their annual assessment bill? Well,
Saratoga's
34% of.
$1,035,000 and.
Yes, and Albany's right
Albany's
there
all
with
over.
them.
Right.
So, what does it actually do?
Yeah, not much.
You're tinkering with the formulas, but what does it really do?
It's about a 3% decrease in their assessment.
Yeah, essentially.
What it would happen.
In other words, I don't think that we're in any, I think further discussion's needed.
Oh, absolutely.
But certain,
Well, first
if
of
the
all,
board
any
wants to
increase
continue.
couldn't go into effect until 16, right?
Or 18.
All right.
At the
Or
very
18.
least, since our renewals are already out for this year.
That's right,
Yes.
that's
It certainly, we're beyond that point now.
Well, I would also submit, from my own experience, a rulemaking. This is a required rulemaking under the State Administrative Procedure Act. You have no less than a 1-year time frame within which you're going to develop the proposal and get.
Now that you're gone, I can do it faster than that.
Now that I'm gone, you well, there's just some minor statutory requirement about public comment.
And I think, we want input from,
Oh, I think,
I mean, this is.
I would not recommend doing it any other way without public input.
Oh, it's
And I would again say to the public that we are only discussing this at this point, and it's conceptual and it's done in the context of responding to the state comptroller's audit
Right.
report.
But we could even start with public comment before the board even determines.
That's
that
really the
that's-
spirit.
It's not a
which I
bad
said
way
that.
there.
Why don't,
Yes.
if this is an issue,
Open with that.
why don't we, this summer, when lake residents are here, begin discussions?
Yep.
And let's make this effort as transparent as has ever occurred. I don't think you're gonna find the resistance
I don't think so either.
in the prior lifetime that occurred. The truth is the truth.
If there hasn't been an increase in decades,
90s, right?
Yeah, 96 or something, 7.
okay, so it's almost 20.
Almost 20 years.
All right, anything else, sir?
That's my report.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let us move to committee reports. You are actually on Finance Committee. Well, yeah, you're reporting
Yeah,
out.
we're gonna move to full board.
We're going to just move to the bond resolution.
Okay, I guess at this time, I would move or recommend to the board the adoption of the amended resolutions that we discussed earlier. Need to say anything further?
That's good, no? A second to that motion?
I'll second that motion, with the understanding for the record that we've had a full examination, presentation of this during the Finance Committee's presentation. I just think that's important
Yeah.
to know.
I would offer that motion be for the first of the two resolutions, and then we'll do a second motion for the second of the two resolutions, so that we treated them separately.
Okay, so I'd make the motion for the adoption of the amended resolution relating to the Comptonville Dam reconstruction project.
For issuance of a serial bond in the amount of $3,246,867.
That's correct. Yes.
Second to that motion?
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion on what came from Finance Committee meeting? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We need a second?
Yeah, second that.
No, the second, I'd request the board request a motion for the adoption of the amended bond resolution as it relates to the Hawkinsville Dam remediation project in the amended amount of $1,249,098 as a principal sum.
Second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Mr. Hayes?
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And it was important to note, we needed 5 votes on these,
Correct.
and we had 5 people here.
Majority of the quorum of the board.
That was the reason we weren't able to do it before we got new board members.
Majority.
Okay, General Counsel, Mr. West.
I'd note, in furtherance of the Executive Director's report regarding the letter that was sent to FERC, I had also talked to NYSEG and Borlex Counsel, asking for their comment on how they viewed the appellate division decisions, eliminating their or our obligation to consider their claims for refunds. Hearing nothing from them, so we'd also reached out in that regard. And I'd also note that in light of the agreement with CSEA, as reported by Mr. Clark, there no longer exists a need to hold a hearing to further address the fact finder's report pursuant to the civil service law. And I'd note that the ALJ assigned by PERB to hear the improper practices charge accepted a recommendation from CSEA and withdrew the improper practice charge. So that matter has been dispensed with. Other than that, I'd note that I submitted our ethics training compliance report this past week. I also submitted our domestic violence prevention report, having heard no indication that we had any issues of domestic violence in the workplace. And as we do every 3 months, submitted the quarterly report to the governor, or at least my portion of it, to be compiled with the rest of it and sent off. That's my report.
Very good. Any questions?
I have none.
No.
Thank you very much. Fiscal report, Mr. Farrar.
Mr. Chairman, my original report in your board packet was pages 35 to 55. And then I had inserted the financials that were delayed due to the scheduling of this meeting, and that they were repaged to be page 1 through page 23. And those are out there after page, if you're looking on your iPads, they would be actually after page 55 of the original report.
Okay.
And that would include the reports that I submit every month, which would be the summary report, the Black River area and Hudson River area detail reports, the contract, which I urge the board to review each meeting to satisfy the public authority requirement to review contracts. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but I would like to also note that in response to the OSC audit recommendations, they did recommend that we revise procedures, one, to address leave requests. We did revise that procedure to include a step that would require the supervisor of the employee submitting the timesheet to review said timesheet against the leave request, or any leave requests that were made for that biweekly period. And that was the one step that they said we were missing. And we have put that in place. And also on the inventory control side, and also equipment tagging, which is kind of all one procedure, we added to that procedure a bullet that said that even though we were doing this, we've now put in writing that each location would actually complete an annual inventory to be completed by the end of March of each year. And that would be each of the major locations. So those are the two things that we've taken care of. They're already in place. And I believe, one other item. The public authority report for the 2015 budget report is due March 31st. I've not put that together yet, but when I do, I will present it to the board at the March meeting, and then it will be submitted to the public Paris system, the public authority report system, following that meeting. And unless the board has any questions, that's my report.
You have board
Yes.
member expenses?
Well, yeah, that's the last item. Board member expenses on page 55. In the amount of $105.28 needs to be
I'll make a motion,
addressed by the board.
pay that.
Second? Second.
That'd be Mr. Bergstresser and Mr.
Hayes.
And, assuming no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I will abstain in view of the fact that it's my expense report.
Mr. Chairman, could I add one thing here really quickly, since we just talked about board member expenses? There's been a new, I don't even remember, from the comptroller's office, and I can't cite to the exact memorandum, but
Travel advisory?
travel advisory, yeah,
Right.
we're, everyone, whether it's staff or board members, now are obligated to submit their expense reports within 30 days, rather than, and the past practice has been, bill up just when you get around to it, several months, and then submit it. Unfortunately, apparently they don't
Can I ask you guys
want to
to
do that anymore.
email me a fax number so I can fax them in?
Oh, sure.
Sure.
How about that?
Huh?
Yeah, then I can just I'll fill it out, fax it.
Is that in effect now?
Yes, it
What
is.
what about some past,
Okay.
I've been just doing it by
Well,
email.
from this point forward,
I could do that.
Okay, so,
Right, we're okay. I mean, this is really, this
My fax machine. I have.
This advisory is really driven primarily by components of the state, whereby they're trying to recognize their expenses more quickly. But again, it's issued to everybody, and we certainly want to follow along.
Sounds like this WBE thing, it's gonna be more paperwork, more work for somebody, instead of us issuing a check every 6 months to me, it's.
That's yeah, true, there'll be enough, but
Not to
again, it's
mention
it's not a
49 cents to mail it every time. Are we up to 50 cents?
we can handle it.
has the reimbursement rate gone up? I understand it's gone up.
Reimbursement rate is up to, 50.
of course, that card's not gonna be
57 something?
50 and a half, 57 and a half.
Oh, and our logos all go away.
And even though gas is coming down, that's a backward-looking adjustment. If you-
Yeah, this is always lags behind.
Correct, correct. So generally, when gas is going up, they're reducing the rate. When gas is on the way back down, they're increasing the rate.
I've never
So-
seen them reduce the rate, to tell you the truth, really.
Oh, yeah, they reduce the rate almost every other year.
Really?
Sure. Yes, rate goes up and down. But over a period of time, it is
Yeah.
gone up.
Keeps
but-
going up.
Right. But it does get
Get our
forward,
trickle
one
water
step
down in
back.
there.
Yeah. 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It's my retirement here.
Anything else for finance? Chief Engineer, Mr. Volk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report begins on page 56. Overall, both areas, we had lower than average precip, lower than average inflows, and the graphs which are attached at the end of the report kind of reflect the benefit of that to some extent, particularly at Stillwater, where we're being able to bring the reservoir back down closer to our target, back on targets, Six Lake and Old Forge. And of course, the end of the month, not reflected since the report that I wrote was put together about the 22nd of December. But, we had some significant inflows as a result of some rain and some snow melt. And so we're working our way down from higher than average or higher than target elevations right now at all the reservoirs, including Great Sacandaga Lake, which is about 5 feet above the target elevation as we speak. But with this cold weather, it usually doesn't, and given the time of the year, it usually doesn't take too long to return it, the reservoirs right back down to our targets. So in general, not a concern, and still sit in pretty good position to prepare for spring refill hopefully in about 3 months.
Very good. Any questions? If not, move on to the Hudson River Black River Administrator, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report starts on page 86. Operations normal in both areas. Talking about the access permit renewals, we're probably to date about halfway. We've received about half of them so far. So,
In dollars or number of
percentage-wise of ones returned so far, not 52% or 50% of the people have responded back.
The last number I'd seen was like 145,000 in that neighborhood, something like that.
Right. And I participated in a FERC Part 12 inspection at Conklin Dam last month. Yes. Well, that's all I have. If anybody has any questions on my report, I'd be glad to answer them.
Well, more importantly, I was late last year with my permit fee, but I was on time this year.
I remember.
I think that was the one that I signed up for.
Yeah.
Was that the one that you guys let go? Yeah.
And the chairman paid the late charge.
Yes, he did. Any, first of all, any questions for Mr. Hud? Sorry. If not, any board member question or comments?
I have a comment. I have a comment. It's the first meeting for this year, and I really think it's important to commend the staff because it's just an incredible amount of work, really, that makes the five of us look like we know what the heck we're doing here as board members. But really, I mean,
We do know.
well, and we do know only by virtue of the work that's done
Absolutely.
by the staff.
Absolutely.
That gets lost a lot.
And if you heard today, it's also getting more. There's more staff.
Yeah, there's more work.
More work going on, so.
And
Hopefully
Publicly
we will-
commend our staff. for-
with you being new to the board,
Thank
also,
you.
I'm aware of the fact that we laid off quite a few years ago. We really didn't replace everybody.
Oh, I understand that.
It's been short-staffed for years.
Thank you.
Doing a good job. Need a resolution for our next board meeting, which is not in, we don't have a February meeting, it's in March.
Correct.
March in Utica.
I thought it was gonna be in Sarasota.
No,
Yes.
just north of Sarasota.
Yeah, just north of Sarasota.
Right.
Utica.
I mean, I'll
Just give yourself 4 days.
I'm off for the Panhandle, that's okay. Panama City or Beach or
Do I have a resolution for the next meeting?
How I digress.
March 10th?
Correct.
I'll make the motion.
Mr.
Utica?
Burgess.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Hayes.
Second.
Mr. Rosenthal.
Third.
I thank everybody for, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank everybody for coming,
Thank
and
you.
this weather, and good travels to those who are leaving for the southern climate.